Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are looking at something truly magnificent. You know, when most of us look at a map of a country, we usually just see borders and the names of cities. But today, I want to completely change how you see the geography of India. We're going to explore the Indian subcontinent not just as a static, flat map, but as an incredible, interconnected living system where these massive mountains feed vast plains, and ancient volcanoes have literally shaped the very soil beneath our feet. Okay, let's dive into this agenda and lay out our top-down journey for today. We'll be starting at the snowy peaks in the north with India's diverse physical landscape and the mighty Himalayan mountains. Then, we'll follow the water down to the fertile northern plains, travel all the way down south to the ancient peninsular plateau, and finally wrap things up by looking at India's major river systems.
Section 1. India's diverse physical landscape. So India is absolutely vast, and honestly, its physical features act kind of like a roadmap for the entire country's geography. As you can see, they're primarily divided into 6 main categories: the Himalayas, the northern plains, the peninsular plateau, the Great Indian Desert, the coastal plains, and the island regions. For our journey today, though, we're going to focus deeply on those first 3 massive structural pillars and the rivers that weave them all together.
Section 2. The mighty Himalayan mountains.
To truly wrap your head around the Himalayas, you really have to grasp their massive scale. I mean, starting from Ladakh in the north and stretching all the way across to Arunachal Pradesh in the northeast, the Himalayas are the 6th longest mountain chain on Earth. They stretch an approximate length of 2,576 kilometers, and of course they are home to Mount Everest, holding the record for the highest peak in the entire world at an elevation of 8,848 meters. It's just wild to think about.
Let's move on and see how this builds, because it's not just one big, solid wall of rock. The Himalayas are actually made up of 3 distinct parallel ranges that kind of step down in elevation. At the very top is the Himadri, or Greater Himalayas. That averages about 6,100 meters high and is covered in massive glaciers. Step down and you hit the Himachal, or Middle Himalayas, which is characterized by incredibly rugged, uneven terrain and famous hill stations like Darjeeling. Finally, we step down again to the Shivalik, or Outer Himalayas, which slopes right down into the flat, densely populated Terai region, home to rich wildlife like what you'd find in the Corbett National Park.
Now hold on a second. I really want to pause on a crucial vocabulary word here that literally unlocks how this entire ecosystem functions: perennial. It basically means lasting for a long time, or existing throughout the entire year. Why does this matter? Well, because in the lower regions of that towering Himadri range, those massive glaciers we just talked about are constantly melting. And that meltwater flows down to the plains to form perennial rivers. They literally never run dry. When you actually summarize why these mountains matter to human survival, it's just awe-inspiring. They are literally India's protectors and providers. As a protector, they act as this massive climatic barrier that completely blocks freezing cold winds from Central Asia. They also trap the southwest monsoon winds, preventing them from blowing right out of India, which gives the country its absolutely crucial rainfall. And as a provider, well, they are the source of those perennial rivers we just mentioned, along with endless timber, medicinal plants, and incredible wildlife.
Section 3. The fertile northern plains. So I want to pose a question to you right now. How exactly did this specific stretch of land become known as the food basket or granary of India? What is the direct cause and effect relationship between those towering snowy mountains and this huge, flat, green expanse?
Well, the answer actually lies in the rivers acting like nature's giant conveyor belts. You see, the northern plains were formed over countless millennia by the sediment and debris brought down by 3 major rivers: the Indus, the Ganga, and the Brahmaputra, along with all their tributaries. As these fast-flowing rivers crash down from the steep mountains and hit the flat plains, they slow right down and deposit alluvium, which is incredibly fertile soil right at the foothills.
And this brilliantly illustrates the final result of all that flowing river water, the Sundarbans Delta. The river Ganga, after stretching across incredible distances, eventually drains into the Bay of Bengal right here. This is literally the world's largest delta. It's known as the Green Delta, and because of ample rainfall and all that rich mountain-delivered soil, it is undeniably one of the most fertile regions on the entire planet.
Now, the reason you should really care about this region is that it's the absolute economic and agricultural backbone of the country. Because the plains are just so intensely fertile, they produce a massive amount of crops. Those perennial rivers we discussed, they are navigable year-round, meaning they act like huge natural highways for transportation.
The water fuels massive hydroelectric projects, and because the land is so phenomenally flat, it makes constructing road and railway networks incredibly efficient, completely connecting the region to the rest of the country.
Section 4. The Ancient Peninsular Plateau.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the distinct shape of the Peninsular Plateau. Look at it, it's almost perfectly triangular, pointing straight downwards toward Kanyakumari. Now, unlike the plains, this isn't made of river mud. This is actually the oldest part of India, formed by ancient volcanic eruptions millions and millions of years ago. It is genuinely one of the most stable landmasses in the world.
So this massive plateau is actually divided into two very distinct halves by the Narmada River. To the north, you have the Central Highlands, which includes the Chota Nagpur Plateau, an area that is famously rich in mineral reserves. Then, to the south of the Narmada lies the Deccan Plateau. This area is flanked by tall mountain ranges on its edges called the Western and Eastern Ghats. In fact, the Western Ghats are so high, featuring Anamudi, which is actually the highest peak in South India at 2,695 meters, that they completely block the moisture-laden monsoon winds. Because of that, the Deccan Plateau is actually quite semi-arid.
So while the north is completely defined by its agricultural wealth, the south is defined by the massive resource wealth stored right inside these ancient rocks. The Peninsular Plateau is a literal storehouse of minerals like iron ore, bauxite, gold, and coal. Plus, all that ancient volcanic activity left behind rich black soil that is absolutely perfect for growing cotton. And those tall Western Ghats? Their steep slopes create fierce river rapids, making them absolutely ideal for generating hydroelectricity, all while hosting incredibly dense forests.
Section 5. India's major river systems.
Okay, so there is a really striking juxtaposition between the two very different worlds we've explored today. The Himalayan rivers in the north, like the Ganga, which by the way is the longest river in India at 2,525 kilometers, are glacier-fed. That means they're perennial. They meander through flat plains, dropping fertile sediments, and you can easily navigate boats on them all year round. Contrast that with the peninsular rivers in the south. Born from ancient hills, they are fed almost entirely by rain, making them highly seasonal. They carve straight paths through hard, rocky terrain, meaning they aren't great for navigation at all, and dams are absolutely critical to store their water for the dry seasons. Two completely different origins, creating two entirely different ways of life.
So the crucial point is this. We've seen how this magnificent geography acts as a perfectly balanced, living machine. The Himalayas act as our shield and our ultimate source of life-giving water, literally building the ground that feeds the entire nation. But as human activity continues to increase, these pristine glacial sources are facing some really severe pollution. If the mountains are the very source of the perennial rivers that keep the entire subcontinent alive, what happens to this interconnected living system when that source is compromised? And more importantly, what can we actually do to protect them? Think about that for a bit. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey through India's physical divisions, right here on The Explainer. Catch you next time.